Hi everyone, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in to the One Story Podcast. Before we begin today's episode, I just wanted to give a disclaimer that there is some adult content on this, drug references and different things. So parents, if you do share this with your kids, use discretion. You can listen first or whatever you want to do, but we wanted to give you a heads up on that. So thanks, and here we go. We are the One Story Podcast. We believe in the power of a story. Everyone has a story, and that story is meaningful. Your story can make a difference. Your story can inspire others. Your story is important. At the same time, ultimately, everyone's story is a part of one story, the big God story.
It's not what you said. You're not who you said you were. When are you alone? Or when will you come back home?
Hello, everyone. We're here with the One Story Podcast. Thanks for listening in. We appreciate it. We hope you're having a great day right now. I'm Drew, and I'm with my friend Isaac.
What up, player?
Hey, Isaac. How you doing?
Oh, man. So excited to be here today.
We're here with Scott Duran.
Hola.
Good friend, brother-in-law to me, which is exciting.
Congratulations.
And first, we just wanted to remind people why we're doing this. This is a podcast about storytelling. It's hearing people's story and how God has showed up in their lives, how Jesus has changed them for the better, how he has come into their lives and transformed them, has showed up for, just what he does in our lives. And so we feel that there's an audience for that. We feel that God is calling us to do this. And so we hope that this gains some traction, that people listen in and they like what we're doing. So
yeah, what we really want to do is for the believers and the non-believers is just give evidence that Jesus is working in us today, that he didn't die on the cross, that he rose and is working in us all through the Holy Spirit. And in Luke 7, he says, your faith saves you. And whether you have seen him work in your life or not, just your faith alone is sufficient enough for him. And so we just really want to, through people's stories, just give evidence.
Yeah, exactly. Couldn't have said it better. And one thing we wanted to say is that we're not pastors. We're not theologians. I said this in the first episode. So we're just two regular guys, two dads that feel like there's a calling for this, that there's people that want to hear this.
Well, I'm on a little bit higher pedestal, Drew. I'm a Vanguard graduate, brother.
That's true. I don't know if Vanguard's happy about that plug or
Go Lions.
So I mean, we don't. This isn't like a polished thing where we're editing a bunch of stuff, where we're taking a lot of takes or anything like that. So we might say some things that are wrong or fumble on our words. So
especially me, right?
So we ask for grace in that, and at the same time, we feel that, we hope that what comes through is not us, that we're not elevated, but that God and the Holy Spirit speaks through us.
Speaking of elevation, last week we had Deacon Ryan McBride.
He was here. That's correct.
But since then, our star power has lifted him up to Elder Ryan McBride.
Oh, no.
So that's what we do with our guests.
That's big time. That is big time.
So, Scott, I hope you're ready. Your career is about to be launched.
Wow.
This is the one-story bump. Once you're on, you go.
So, but congratulations to Ryan.
Awesome.
He's gonna be doing good. He's been doing good work, but he's gonna be doing amazing things as an elder of Southland. So
yeah, and Ryan had an amazing story last week, and we hope what shines through is that Jesus, God, he's faithful. He's faithful to us even when we're at our darkest, lowest points, and I hope that's what kind of shone through.
Yeah, to me, it kind of highlighted the relentlessness of Jesus and just how he just goes after us. So it was powerful.
All right. Well, without further ado, we're going to talk to Mr. Scott Duran here. Scott.
Yo. How we doing today?
We're doing good. We're doing great. How about maybe you just tell us a little bit about yourself. You are my brother-in-law. You're married to my sister, and
Caitlin, I love you. Have to give a shout out.
There it is.
Have to give a shout out.
It took us 2 episodes to give a shout out to our wives. Way to make us look bad.
That's
Scott,
all good.
Appreciate it.
Nope, no problem. I do what I can. Yeah. Well, before you guys start, I just wanted to give a shout out to you guys. I remember Drew coming to me and just mentioning that you guys had the idea for this, and I thought it was a great idea. When he told me like the plan and like exactly what you guys were trying to do, it brought me to a part of scripture in Revelations 12:11, and it says that they overcame him, being the enemy, by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. And it's just exactly what I thought. Like, obviously, we overcome with Jesus, but our testimonies are weapons that we can use to help others find Christ.
It's powerful, awesome.
So that's just exactly what I thought when I saw this. So I think what you guys are doing is amazing, and I just pray that people come open to listen, and I just think it's great.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
this podcast is part of our testimony. It's kind of, again, just kind of reassuring that what God's doing, just that he's working. So no, thank you for that. So what brings you here today besides our invite?
Besides us begging you to be on the show.
Oh, I just saw you guys on the side of the road and you guys were waving at me. I said, hey, they look like they need help.
We need guests.
Free guests or car wash or something like that. Whatever we got people in here with.
Hey, they can't all be gems.
No, I think it's great. I'm honored to be on this and be a part of this. And I just think, like Drew said, everybody has a story. Not everybody's is the same, and some people have different areas of lives that they went through valleys, and I think everyone, if they truly looked like at their story, at their lives, they would see that God's moving in them and that they can relate to other people. They just need to know that they're not alone.
Where does your story begin?
Well, when my story of faith, like I was raised Catholic.
Okay.
My mom, we've even had conversations about it recently too, where she said, I just wanted to create a foundation for you, and then where you went with that was kind of up to you. So we were raised Catholic, went to St. Pius in Buena Park, went through all that. I went through did the whole 9 yards, did catechism, which essentially was like Sunday school for those that aren't familiar.
Better Catholic than me. I grew up Catholic too, but never made it there.
Yeah, I went to get. Well, my mom was actually a teacher.
Oh, okay, cool.
There too. So we went to catechism. I did all the sacraments that I needed to, at least up to for my age. What? I'm gonna be honest, I don't even remember all of them. It's been so long, but
because you do the confirmation and
baptism, first communion,
right, yeah.
So I went through all of those, but in terms of church and a relationship, I just went to church. It was just something. It was like a Sunday routine. There was no heart behind it.
Yeah.
If anything, I was excited for Sundays to go to church, not because of church, but because brunch came afterwards.
Oh, dude. I used to, same thing, used to not really be stoked about going, because we went to a Catholic church too, but really not stoked about going, and just it was just so boring to me at the time. And but I was always stoked about the tamales afterwards. There was always a lady out there hawking
Nice.
tamales outside of the church, and that was, my mom would always get a half dozen or so.
Sunday tamales.
The highlight of Catholic church for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I was excited because it meant El Torito for brunch after, and so I knew God, but I didn't fear God. There wasn't a reverence
or
for God.
a relationship or closeness
exactly.
to him.
I knew of Jesus, and I was excited to learn about him, but looking back, I know now it was I liked it the way I like history.
Mm-hmm.
It's oh, okay, wow, that's cool that happened. But like I said, I didn't have a respect, an honor, a reverence for the things that he did.
Gotcha. So that takes you, all the way through high school?
No, because we were going to school a little bit closer to that area, so we were there. And then I came to La Mirada, and I lived in La Mirada, but I started going to school in La Mirada,
Mm-hmm.
and we just kind of it kind of drifted away. We
Fizzled out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we still went here and there, but it wasn't as routine, if you will. I know it kind of sounds bad when you're going to church, but it wasn't as routine as it was before.
Right. And because it was just building a foundation for you guys growing up is basically what it was. But then as you get older, it starts taking an actual relationship for you to continue on with it, right?
Well, yeah, but in middle school is where, like, the story, I mean, we stopped going to church altogether was in 7th grade. I can remember the day my mom found out that my dad had cheated and he had been kicked out of the house. And I remember, as young as I was, I didn't quite understand it. I didn't quite understand it, and I just.
But at that age, you understand enough where you notice the impact. You notice that your dad's gone. It's not like if you were 3 years old and it happened,
right?
Of course.
And you're like, oh, where's my dad? You know, because that kind of happened with me. My parents split up when I was around 5, and I didn't even notice my dad was gone. I might have been like 4 or 5, but I didn't even notice he was gone. I knew that I missed him, but. So in 7th grade, you're fully aware of what's happening.
Oh yeah, there was definitely tears there because, I mean, like I said, I didn't understand like the full meaning of it. I just knew that my dad was no longer at the house, and there's definitely pain there.
You knew what he had did?
Yes,
okay.
yeah, I understood that too. And I actually didn't know how much it affected me. You know,
how'd you feel at the time? Do you remember?
At the time, I was just sad that, he wasn't there. I was sad that, their relationship was broken. That our family was broken.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
I have an older sister.
Okay.
And I know it affected her too. I can't comment exactly how much it affected her. I know she showed it more than me. That's for sure.
Right.
How was your mom doing during this?
Obviously she was hurting. She was hurting, and it affected her, and
But you probably couldn't grasp the fullness of it and all the layers and everything, just being that young.
And as parents, I mean, all of us are dads, and you kind of know that when in situations where they're tough, you definitely put on a shield and you toughen up because you don't want your kids to be overwhelmed by your emotions. So she probably was, kind of tucking that in as much as possible just to make sure you guys weren't, were taken care of. And
it's funny that you mentioned that too, because like I said, I didn't know how much it affected me. And, for the longest time, even like years down the road, if I ever talked about this stuff, to be honest, it took me a long time to talk about it. But when I'd tell people, it didn't affect me. Like, I'd have aunts and uncles, hey, how you doing? Are you okay? You can come over anytime if you need to. And I'm like, I'm fine.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's not me per se. Like, I'm fine.
Like, that was your parents' relationship that was broken, but really, I mean, it affects everybody, and especially the kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
As I know from experience as well.
So I would always tell people I'm fine. And I remember, because I didn't know how much it affected me, I remember years down the line, like, my mom telling me, like, you didn't realize how much it affected you. My mom said, like, my grades dropped.
Maybe even your personality.
Yeah,
and
I found myself getting, like, angrier at times. So
where you kind of like you lash out in different ways, or find ways to cope with it. But at the time, you didn't really know or see that. But someone from the outside definitely, I mean, like your mom could see that,
Yeah, I mean, like the way I put it, or I didn't know it affected me until probably, I'm gonna say, high school, or maybe a little bit after high school. Because that's when a little bit after high school, I started going to parties, started drinking, and that's when.
Say what?
Wait, this was after high school. It wasn't during high school.
No.
So high school, you kept it together. Because that's a tough place. High school is just so much influence, and your peers, and it's just like
depending on who you're hanging out with and who you're running with.
Yeah,
I mean, you kind of said it like parents or dads do it, but I think if we're honest with ourselves, a lot of us do it. We kind of put on this shell that everything's fine. You walk up to someone, how you doing? You're not going to be like, oh, things are doing terrible.
Yeah,
and if they do say that to you, you want to like, okay, don't talk to that guy.
I'm not going to hang out with that person. Exactly, they're bringing me down.
Exactly. So I mean, I just I'd put on a shell that I was fine. And again, I didn't even know how much it affected me. And then, like I said, after high school, started going to parties and drinking. And then that's when how much it really affected me came out, because I would drink, and I'm an emotional person to begin with, first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
I wear my heart on my sleeve.
You and I both, brother.
I wear my heart on
I
my
feel like
sleeve.
crying right now.
From like
I'm good.
Drew's never cried in his life.
he has no tear ducts. He has no tear ducts.
I can't. I just can't do it.
Drew, hold on. You ever seen Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs?
No.
You seen it? You know the officer, and his son gets a chest hair, and he goes, oh, my little boy's growing up, and he starts to tear up, and he goes, get back in there, tear.
Sucks it back up.
Nice.
Sorry.
So yeah, I started drinking, and that's when I realized how much it was affecting me, because I would get emotional, and it wouldn't take a lot to get me emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
And were you thinking about your dad? Was that what it was?
Probably
No.
not thinking about it, but I get what you're saying. Like, you start drinking, and then
all that pent up anger.
just starts coming out, and you can't hold back those emotions.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Was it emotion? What kind of emotions were there?
Mostly it was anger.
Okay.
And then, I mean, there was a few times where like it was just I would cry, to be honest, but I didn't know that it was from that. You know what I mean? It would be someone steps on my toe, and then I'm like, I'm just completely upset that they did that. Like I had no control over my emotions.
Step on your toe and just start swinging. You're like,
What's this guy's problem?
I just said,
I
excuse
have
me.
sensitive toes. Yeah, I mean, well, before that too, before like actually still in high school, before all the drinking and all that, like there was a lot of anger that became even more built up from the time he left the house to that point, because there was a couple altercations, not like physical altercations, but verbal altercations between the woman that he was with and my mom. There was a couple times where I asked him, you know, like she came to a couple of football practices, and I asked him, you know, I don't want to see her there. And he said, okay. Next thing you know, at a game, she was there, and then that's when she got in verbal altercation with my mom
at the football game.
Yeah, and I didn't know about it till after. And when I found out, I was so mad that it happened. I was mad because, you know, he said he wouldn't, and he did. Mm-hmm. That I probably went like, I can't remember the exact amount of time, but I want to say like 3 to 6 months without talking to him. Mm-hmm. And he would reach out constantly, and I was just like, I don't want to have anything to do with you. Like, I asked you to respect my wishes, and you didn't.
Which
do
was
that.
you trying to protect your mom, ultimately.
I think it was definitely trying to protect my mom, protect my sister, and to protect myself.
Because it was kind of like revealed, that altercation probably revealed something that people might have not have known about you or what was going on in your life.
Yeah, it was definitely
It was kind of now it's
embarrassing, and it was
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so there was definitely anger there. And so back to after high school drinking, I'd get angry, and then there was all too often I would black out, and I'd wake up the next morning, and my friends
Scott Duran was going hard.
I mean we could sit here and talk about how I was drinking just to fit in, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Right.
But I would black out, and I'd have my friends be like, you were crazy last night. You literally tried to fight like 3 people.
Oh man.
Okay.
And so, like after a while, I didn't like the hangovers. I didn't like who I was when I was drinking.
Right.
And
or at least who they were telling you were like,
Right.
because you didn't know.
So
well, he really just fell asleep on the couch. We just created this amazing story.
so how did you start to step away from that life?
Well, I'll give credit to God for that, but you know, there was just something in me was just like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I don't like who I am. I don't like who I'm becoming. And so I didn't want to do it anymore. And I was just like, you know what? I'm cutting cold turkey. And, you know, I know plenty of people, including myself, I've said that many times.
Oh yeah.
But after a while, like I would say that, and then I'd go back, and then the same thing would happen, and it was just like, nope.
Yeah,
You gotta, yeah.
No, just that addiction is hard, man. Not to say that you were an alcoholic or anything, but just that pull to kind of alter your mind state and kind of numb the emotions.
Yeah, because it's coping with whatever's going on, and even if you don't even know what's going on, like because you're saying you had all this pent up aggression, anger that was stemming from probably sadness at the core from your dad and what he did, and then you drink to suppress it.
Well, I can totally resonate with that. I mean, I was walking with the Lord. And I was still I was dipping my feet into that world, and it sucked because I was doing it while I was at church. I was doing it behind my wife's back, and it was just something that I was making a great effort to stop, but you just fall back into that cycle, and it sucks because you feel guilt about it, and just everything else that comes with it. It's just not good.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I was addicted to alcohol, but if anything, I was addicted to fitting in with others, which led to alcohol.
For sure.
Right. Yeah.
For sure.
So
where does that take us next?
So pretty much, I was on my own with that one, right?
No, I know exactly what you're saying, and I had that. I had the same thing going on with me. It wasn't. I wasn't in the relationship that I'm. With my wife, or before we started dating, is when I was going through all of that. But just wanting out, but still just being in that lifestyle, and it's just the back and forth, the push and pull of that.
Yeah.
So what's the next part there, Mr. Scott?
Then here's another shout out. Then I met my wife. Well, I should say we got reacquainted because we went to high school together.
Hey, Caitlin, Caitlin V.
What up, sis?
We started dating, and then after some time, I know she said she had it in her heart too. She wanted to go back to church, and she made that known to me, and I already had it in my heart, and I'm just I want to get back to church. I didn't like who I was becoming, so we decided to go back to church, and we went to Rock Harbor. I think we went to Costa Mesa.
Oh, okay. Nice.
That's where I got started. Actually, we had talked about that. That's where we kind of got back into it. Well, I was never into it, but that's where I started.
You're like, wait a minute, are you telling my story? So we went there, and we were off and on probably for about a year.
Mm-hmm. Like dating wise?
No.
Or going to church.
Going to church. Okay. We'd go, and I would. It was, honestly, it was weird at first because being raised Catholic, the Christian church is so much different.
Yeah, the loud music,
the
lights.
Did I tell the story about the first time I went to church? Because I grew up in the Catholic church, so that when my wife took me to church the first time,
dragged you to church.
Did I say dragged or drugged?
Drugged you.
Drugged.
She drugged you.
She drugged me to get into church.
We're gonna sedate Isaac, and we're gonna wheel him in.
But it was that same thing. I was like, oh yeah, I've been in church a bunch. I'll go to church. And I went there. I was like looking for the holy water. I was like, wait,
where do I dip? Where do I dip my hand?
I'm like, wait, how come there's no pews in here? I was like, Jesus not on the cross. It was weird, but yeah. I get that.
And I remember too, because I was wearing a lot of baggy clothes at the time. I was like, did I just walk into a Hollister, or did I walk into
Rock Harbor? Yeah,
I was
like a fashion show.
I stand out like a sore thumb. Yeah. So it was definitely different, but the more we went, the more I enjoyed it, like the content that the pastor would share. I was able to relate to it. I was able to understand it more, and I wanted more of it. But there's definitely, I was fighting flesh on that. So we would go off and on for, like I said, probably about a year, and then we got from there we got invited by some family friends to Freedom House Church. Shout out to Freedom House Church now.
Yay.
Pastor Josiah, Pastor Marie, love you guys. We got invited there. And
so that was after just like a year and a half at Rock Harbor?
Yeah.
And then you went to... So how long were you guys dating at that point?
We were probably dating... were we married yet? I want to say in between a year and a half and 2 years.
Okay.
Because in the process of that, we got married. Like I said, we were still going...
Wait, you guys got married within 2 years of dating?
That's correct.
That is sick. You can't win all in.
Yeah.
That's what I know about Scott. He just goes all in, baby.
You better have those dates and timelines figured out because she's going to be listening.
Hey, wait, during that dating time, did Drew ever give you the talk?
Well, the funny part is the very first. I'll tell you the story about the first time I met Drew. Me and Caitlin and I were going to go see a movie, and I go over there, and she's still getting ready, so I go sit on the couch and I'm waiting, and she comes, she's like, "Hey Drew, this is Scott," and he's walking from his room to the kitchen.
And you said, "I didn't know you had a little brother."
No, this is verbatim his exact response. He doesn't stop walking, he just goes, "Hey."
Real hospitable, Drew.
Hey.
I said, "All right, I got past the first brother."
That was that was a big acceptance right there. That's how I accepted you in.
Just hey.
If it wasn't, I wouldn't have said anything.
He'd even look at but he'd even look at you though, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he did.
Oh, okay.
At the corner of his eye. No, but so we were married and we were going to Rock Harbor, and before we made it to Freedom House, I remember thinking, like, the pastor made a comment like we need to put Christ first in everything we do. And I remember at the time, even going to church, I was like, how am I going to do that? That makes no sense. I got to put him first in my eating, my thinking, my drinking. Like, how's that even possible? So they were doing a missions trip too, and I'm like, I can't see myself doing a missions trip. So my heart wasn't fully there yet, but it was on the right path. So we got invited to Freedom House, started going there. And
where'd you go for the mission trip? Or did you go?
No, I didn't go.
You were just saying they were
weren't ready.
You were just pointing out that you weren't
Exactly.
You were still trying to figure it all out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so after a while going to Freedom House, we realized we felt planted there.
Mm-hmm.
And I started thinking about with my dad again, a relationship with my dad, and I felt led to talk to one of the elders about forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to him and went in his office one Saturday. We were talking, and I asked him about it, like my relationship. Like, I've forgiven him, I think, which the fact that I said think probably should have been the key right there. And I've forgiven her, but do I have to do that in person? Like, do I need to do this, and this? And he's like, you want my honest answer? I think you need to do that. Like, I think you need to go, and I think you need to forgive them, not just for them, but more for yourself. Mm-hmm. I like the.
So, not to cut you off, did you have a relationship with your dad at that point?
Yeah.
So it was just like kind of surface level.
Yeah,
type,
I mean,
or
I would call it a good relationship. I wouldn't call it great because I'd call it good, not great, because we never really addressed any of it. It was just kind of like, we'd go
kind of swept under the rug a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was there, and there's a quote. I don't know who said it, but I heard it many times, and it's unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
I'm pretty sure I said that.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. Oh, there it is. I found it on Google. Yeah, it was you. It's true. I'd sit there and I would get mad at him, and I would think to myself, I'm not going to forgive him. I'm not going to forgive him, and that's going to affect him. But really, it was just there was chains on me. Mm-hmm. It was dragging me down. It was affecting my attitude, my personality.
Yeah.
And so, I knew at that point, after that conversation with our elder, that I needed to change. But I was still fighting my flesh. It was hard. There was just, after so long of like hurt and lies, that I didn't want to forgive him. Mm-hmm. So we had a men's retreat, and the men's retreat was awesome. There was a lot of healing there. But one of the last things the pastor talked about, and it was like he was talking to me, because the things he said, and he said, we need to forgive our fathers of any hurt that they did for us. And I was just like, whoa, God, you're talking to me right now. Mm-hmm. I was like, I got to do this. So come back from the retreat, and I'm still fighting it. Like, it was just too hard. And probably like a week after that, my walls came down a little bit from the retreat, and then I hear I don't know if you guys have heard it, but Lauren Daigle's "How Can It Be."
The song.
Yeah, there's a song called "How Can It Be."
How
by-
does it go, Scott?
Sing it.
No, I'm not at the right octaves right now. Okay,
We'll look it up after.
but she's
I was thinking the same thing.
But if you look it up and you listen to it, the song's about how can we be forgiven? You know, we don't deserve it. We don't live lives that are worthy of being forgiven, but we were forgiven anyways.
For sure.
And I remember listening to that song.
That's what we call grace, baby.
Exactly. And I remember hearing that song, and I was just like, I don't deserve to be forgiven, yet I am. How could I not treat my dad with that same grace?
Right.
So I remember I heard that song, and I remember crying. I was like, all right, that's it. I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this anymore. So I told my wife, I'm like, all right, this is it. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to talk to him and let him know. And we went to a football game together. I remember my wife was with us. She stepped out of the car because she knew we were going to have this conversation. And I just let him know. I said, Dad, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all the bitterness and the anger that I held towards you.
That's sick.
You know, and I even told him too, and I remember I said it with tears in my eyes. Look, when Christ did on the cross for me, I didn't deserve, and you don't deserve to be treated with how I'm doing it to you.
It's power. That's strong, man. That's strong.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, you know, I need to forgive her. I need to forgive her too. I just want you to know it's going to take a little bit more time for that.
Right. Yeah.
And so I want to say probably about 3 months went by, and it was constant. God was just still speaking. You got to do this. You got to do this. And probably after about 3 months.
What was his reaction when you had forgiven him, and then also kind of saying that God led you to forgive him?
Well, at first, you know, he was just thankful because, you know, this had been something that he was hoping for years and years, and to finally have it happen. I know he was probably holding back some. I could see, but he was thankful, and I could tell you he thanked me a few more times after. Just thank you for this. Like, I'd been talking to my friends about it, just hoping that it would happen. So
had he been, prior to that, like, been apologizing to you and just telling you sorry for what I did or anything like that? Or was there any kind of remorse? Or?
No, but that was the beauty of it. Like, I didn't go in expecting an apology because, again, this
Right.
wasn't
That wasn't your place for anything in return. You were just
exactly
being faithful to God and to Jesus and living out what's done for us and the grace. And you gave your dad grace, and it's awesome.
So couple weeks or months go by, and I tell my wife the same thing. You know what? It's been too long. I can't wait anymore. We actually had a message at church about it, and it was, you know, delayed obedience is still disobedience. And I remember hearing that. I'm like, I can't delay this anymore. So we set up a dinner with them, and same thing. I shared with them, look, I brought you guys here because I want to apologize. I've been carrying so much anger, so much hate, so much bitterness towards you guys that I don't want to live that, like, I don't want to live like that anymore. And I just want you guys to know I am sorry. I'm sorry that I had that for you guys. You guys, I want you guys to know personally that I forgive you, and that there's no more anger there. It's just it's love now.
It's powerful.
It had to have been just a huge weight lifted off of you.
I remember walking out of the restaurant and telling Caitlin, it was like I could physically feel the weight off my shoulders. I felt like the chains fall off.
It's the peace, man. That's the peace that God offers with his love, with his grace.
Yeah.
You know, he gives you that, you know, I think I looked it up. Grace it's just in the dictionary, it's unmerited love. So God gives that to us just because, you know, what he did for us. But then, it overflows into the relationships and the people around us. So when you're able to do that, that was off of you now, you know, not that it was on your dad, but you trusted God and he gave you that peace, you know, so that's awesome.
Absolutely. And kind of like you were saying, Drew, after I apologized, they started apologizing for like what had happened. And I remember after my wife and I having a conversation, and I was like, you know what? That was amazing because I didn't expect that to happen, but it did. And I think that's just something that we realize when we step out and we do the things that we're called to do, like God will bless us in those ways.
That's awesome, man. So you stepped out in faith.
Yeah, and I think other people listening to this in that same situation, hopefully it encourages, because it's not easy. I mean, what you did is not easy at all, and even, maybe take God out of it, you could be justified for not having a relationship with your dad and holding that against him for years and years, but you did step out in that and look what's come from it.
Yeah, I mean, Isaac's talking about God's grace. Like, if we're honest, like, I could sit here and be like, you know what, he didn't deserve to be forgiven because he never apologized.
Right.
He was still seeing her, and so I didn't need to. But again, we go back to our forgiveness, the grace that God extends to us. We don't deserve it.
Exactly.
We fall short every day, but His mercies and His grace are new every day.
Tell me about it.
Amen. Ask my wife.
Yeah.
Wow, man, that's awesome, Scott. So sounds like you're knee deep in ministry and in your church. So how's God working in you nowadays?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, now I'm going to Freedom House Bible College that they offer now.
Sick.
Going to do that, which is amazing. I'm just getting equipped and understanding it more too. And people have asked me too, like, hey, are you doing that because you want to become a pastor? And I always tell them, like, if that's why I wanted to do it, like, I'm in it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I did it because I want to grow closer. I want to understand more. I don't want to just read the Bible and be like, I wonder what that means.
Yeah.
I want to get deeper into it to understand it, get context to it. So, I mean, doing that has just been great. And, volunteering. And now, like I said, like, I'm all in, if you will.
Yeah, and that's life that, I mean, you can never regret. It's so amazing to see how God will work, through the church and into the people that attend, and how that pours out into the people. It's just it's a trickle down effect but that's never ending. It just keeps on going. It never runs out. So that's strong, man. Especially, I mean, like you were saying, understanding the word, because in my Bible plan, like, some of it right now is Isaiah, and I read it kind of quick because, like, right over my head. I'm like, okay, I got it.
Yeah, it could be.
So
and
that'll be good for you.
You start getting into the layers of it and really digging into it.
Yeah, because if we're honest, there's so much depth to it that we can't even.
Yeah,
from a surface level, we don't really even. We can't.
Yeah,
I've heard it said about the Bible, like, anybody can pick it up and read it and gain from it, but you can also spend your whole life trying to get down to the bottom of it, and you'll never reach the bottom.
Yeah.
I think that's the beauty of it, is you can read it over and over again, and you could probably even read the same scripture over and over again, but it'll hit you in different ways because you'll be in different seasons.
Stages of life. Yeah,
constantly working.
Yeah.
That's sick.
Well, is there anything else you wanted to add to it, or I mean, not to cut you off or anything?
No. I mean, that was the gist of it for now. I know Isaac likes his holy smokes moments.
Let's hear that holy smokes moment.
I got to appease to that.
Darn it! Now I don't get to ask. What you got?
No, I've had plenty of moments, but one of them. Speaking of just like the subject matter that we were just speaking of, when we first started going to Freedom House Church, they had what they call starting point, and you go there and you meet the pastors, you kind of understand their story, and afterwards you get to talk with them and just get to know them a little bit more personally. And I remember my wife and I talking to Pastor Marie. She was talking to us, and I'm shy, although some people may not know it. I'm a shy person, so I wasn't even in the conversation, but my wife was talking to her, and she was kind of just giving her whole story about, like, she was in the same thing. Her dad cheated, and he was doing that, and she was kind of just letting her know. And in the middle, I wasn't saying anything at this point, and in the middle of it, she turns to me and she says, "You know what? I feel it now. You're not gonna do what your dad did. You're not gonna live that life. You're gonna be a faithful person. You're gonna be a God-honoring husband." And she went on for like a while, but it was like directed
and
at me.
she didn't even know you at the time.
She didn't know me. I didn't say anything, and she says, you're not going to do what your father did. And
she didn't even know about your dad at all.
Exactly.
Because Caitlin was talking about her story.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember after she was finished talking, like she kind of shook her head. She's like, "Did that make sense?"
Wow.
Because she like prophesied. She prophesied over me, and I remember like looking at her, and like I just kind of I said yes, and I remember she eventually like walked away and went to talk to some other people, and I look at my wife. I'm like, did that just happen? I was like, I didn't even talk to her. She had no idea. Like that was my story too.
Yeah.
And then she prophesied that over me, and I was just like,
that
was
holy smokes.
That is.
Yeah. So powerful. I mean, that was one. I got plenty, but even I wanted to share these two because I feel like God cares. 1 Peter 5:7 says, cast your anxieties on him because he cares for you. And I believe even if you're not walking with him, God still cares about you. He's still moving in your lives if you really just take a step back and look. And before I was doing all that, we were at one house and we were getting evicted, not because of bills or anything, but because there was just many disagreements with the landlord. And it was probably like mid-December, and he said, you guys need to get out by New Year, or you're gonna get kicked out. Mm-hmm. And I remember we were looking. My mom and I were going around looking for apartments, and we couldn't find anything. And it was the last week of December, and we were still looking. And I was home alone, and these three gentlemen that lived down the street, I know they had doing a little Bible study every week. They came up and I answered the door, and they said hi, introduced themselves, and they just said, we're just going around. Did you need prayer for anything? And I said, wow, actually, yeah, we need to find a place, and we only have a week to do it. I said, all right. And they prayed for me, prayed for my family, and then a few days later, my mom and I are looking at an apartment, and it was perfect. Had enough room. It was actually bigger, and we ended up getting it, and we got it the day before New Year's.
They had to get out.
We signed it, and then we went a little bit over moving stuff in, but because we were moving in, he didn't get crazy with the eviction. But the day before, we were able to get an apartment.
Wow,
that's
just
beautiful.
Provided for you.
Yeah, that's
at
beautiful.
That moment.
And the way he got you guys something more than what you were expecting.
Yeah.
So God does that all the time. You're like, God, I just want this, and he's like, oh, you can have that plus.
Right.
And it's awesome.
And I remember I telling my mom after too, she was just like, I don't know how this happened. I'm like, I haven't told you, but three gentlemen came and they prayed for us. That I remember just tears in her eyes. She's like, thank you, God.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that, Scott. That was an awesome story, man.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
Before we close it out, anything else? Or
I mean, I got one more, which is very similar to that. But I mean, you guys, that's up to you guys.
You go for it.
All right.
No, we don't want to hear it.
You're done. We're at time.
Cut. Wrap it up. Wrap it up.
There's another one. This one, I was already married. We actually had our first child, Devin, and we were living at a 1-bedroom apartment, and we found out, I'll use the word suddenly, that we were having another child.
Mexican style.
Irish twins.
That's right. A year and 10 days apart. We found out we had another one, and we were in 1-bedroom. We're like, I don't know if we're going to make this work, but we had just gotten paperwork to renew the lease. And they said, you need to you need to do it by this date, or you go month to month, and then it's at its max.
It's more expensive.
Exactly. Right? So, we saw the paperwork, and we kind of left it because we were undecided, and time goes by, and we're getting closer and closer to the deadline. We need to turn this in. We need to do something about it. Otherwise, we're in trouble. So we get probably, for some reason, I call it divine. For some reason, we did not turn in that paperwork. And probably 3-4 days, maybe even a week before, we get a call of a family friend who has a condo that she's thinking of renting out. And we go and check it out the next day. it's humongous compared to our apartment. two bedrooms. The bedrooms, each bedroom's bigger than the bedroom that we had at the apartment, and we were still undecided. We're like, this is a blessing. Like, we'd have 2 bedrooms. We're getting 2 kids. Like, we need this, and we end up signing the papers. Or I take that back. We had a dog. We have a Great Dane, and they didn't accept pets.
Oh yeah.
We're like, all right, we're gonna have to get rid of this dog.
So you killed the dog.
It was a tough day.
I've seen Old Yeller.
I'll do it, Ma.
Caitlin's not gonna like you for that comment.
It's my dog.
So we thought we weren't going to be able to do it. And then consider it divine again. They said, you know what? We don't normally do it, but we're going to allow you to have this dog there. And
Sweet. You didn't have to shoot the dog in the head. It's nice.
no,
It's a happy story.
And it was they normally had a pet fee, and they're like, we're going to waive that as well.
No
That's
way.
awesome.
So we actually started living there cheaper than the apartment.
Wow.
And you got to have.
And we got more room, and we got
More
to keep the
room
dog.
and the dog. Yeah.
And it was, again, just like the earlier story. It was a few days before we had to turn it.
Making the decision on the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. That's just trusting God.
Mm-hmm.
That's just really having faith, just really like knowing that God's going to work things out.
Yeah,
That's
for
strong.
sure. Well,
I do want to say one thing when you were talking about your dad.
Yeah.
The one thing that popped up in my head when you were just talking about like just the grace that God has for all of us, I was reminded of the Last Supper, and God broke bread and made a blood covenant, with everybody with his betrayer Judas, with Simon.
Peter, who was going to betray him,
who was going to betray him or deny him,
Oh yeah.
and then everybody was arguing about who is the greatest among they just totally just missed the whole thing,
Missed the mark.
but he still say eat this and remember
This
to
is
me,
my-
drink this for
Yeah.
I promise you that we'll have new life.
Yeah, for sure.
And that was his grace, and I just had thought was thinking of that, that example of grace and what grace is as a love and a forgiveness and all of the above for no reason except for
because he loves
us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Think about the Romans while he's on the cross. Like, forgive them for they know not what they do. Like,
yeah, all the people there.
he didn't hold back his grace, and he never does.
Well, right on, man. Thanks, Scott, for being on here. It's a great
Thank
story.
you for having me.
Just a great story of forgiveness, of you stepping out, of God being faithful to you and taking care of you and your family. So thanks. I appreciate you, being on here, being candid, and I think it was really, really good.
yeah, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it. And just for people who are listening, if you guys want to share your story, whether it's about redemption or a testimony, stories of miracles, just anything that you think that God had his hand in, you can email us at onestorypodcast@gmail.com.
Yep. Yeah, and to that point too, we're hearing testimonies, and I think that is powerful, like what Scott was talking about in the beginning from Revelation. But also, it doesn't just have to be like a testimony of how you were saved or how God changed your life. It could just be you went on a missions trip and how did God work in that when you were there. It could be a story about how you stepped out in faith and what happened from that. It could be a story about struggling with anything that we struggle with, depression, anxiety, addiction, things like that, and then how God was with you throughout that journey and where you are now. It doesn't have to be a polished story. We can be in the middle of it, but we just want to hear from you, and we hope that people want to share their story and reach out to us in that. So hopefully that God puts that on your heart.
And also just share this podcast with your friends. If you can like us on Instagram, Facebook.
It's good to our ego. We want to be liked. Like us.
You can find me at Isaac.Lebrija on Instagram, and it's Isaac Lebrija on Facebook, and Drew is D Daily.
D Daily 34. Yeah.
and just please just spread the word. We're just really trying to reach people who are either on the fence about God, don't know God. We're just really trying to shine the light on shine His light. So
Yes, sir.
with that, I would just ask that you open your eyes, listen closely, soften your heart, and see how God reveals Himself to you.
Amen.